Tim Aiden, Penn State SB Nation platform, Black Shoe Diaries, joining us to break down the big game in the Big Ten this week. Penn State hosting Michigan. So subscribe to my YouTube channel for the best in college football coverage and the long-form conversations you can catch with the best bloggers and broadcasters in college football, guys like Tim Aiden here with Black Shoe Diaries. Those available on Stitcher, Podbean, and iTunes for the complete audio conversation. So, as you're alluding to, Tim, what sometimes doesn't get the focus is the other matchup. So Michigan's got an elite defense, and I think the rest of the season is going to play out and confirm that. Penn State has at least a very good offense. It might be elite. I think I need to see it play Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State to make that call. But we know it's extremely, extremely talented. The offensive line probably holds the key. But flip the script. Michigan's offense, especially in the passing game, has been a mess. Penn State's got a really good defense that doesn't get much attention nationally because everybody's saying McSorley downfield, Barkley is awesome. They're always looking at the offense. Can you fill us in on the Penn State defense, how well they've played? Because they get absolutely no pub out there unless you really dig deep.
You know, it's fun for a defense that's played as well as Penn State's. You're right. They really don't talk about much. Usually when I read or watch things on Penn State, they're always talking about Trace McSorley this, Saquon Barkley that, But the defense doesn't really get much attention. But they're, statistically, at least in certain categories, they're better than Michigan's. Especially when it comes to scoring defense, they allow less than 10 points a game. They allow about 9.7 points per game. I mean, which is a ridiculous. Now I know the competition they play hasn't quite been that stellar offensively, and that's not going to change this weekend either. I think I would wait maybe till Ohio State to make I'm going to wait until Ohio State to make a full judgment on that. But, still allowing less than 10 points per game, 6 games in the season is nothing to scoff at. And so part of that's due to an incredible secondary led by Marcus Allen. He's not a guy who's going to make interceptions. He only has one, actually, and he just got that against Georgia State this year. But he is a very hard hitter. Like you throw a pass over the middle to your tight end, it's like you better be ready to secure that ball because Allen's going to come and knock that thing out of your hands for an incompletion if you're not careful. But and he's been great in run supports. He's just a guy who's in the right place, right time. And you can see, he's a senior. It's his 4th year starting, and it shows. He's a leader of that secondary, maybe the leader of that defense as a whole. And then you got the defensive line, which was a question mark going into the season because they had lost Garrett Sickles to the NFL and Evan Schwan to graduation. But you've seen guys like Sharif Miller, for example, just step up, be that guy who can wreak havoc in the backfield. I know he had a critical tackle for safety against Iowa, which of course made all the difference in the end. And Shaka Toney stepped up big time against Northwestern. He had kind of his coming out party a couple weeks ago. So those are the 2 guys to keep an eye on the D-line. Shane Simmons, he was a 4 or 5-star defensive end recruit out of Maryland. But he made a nice stop on 4th down against Northwestern a couple weeks ago. So another guy to keep an eye on. And of course, I wouldn't be talking about Penn State's defense without the linebacking core. I know they're not, this isn't like they don't have a Paul Posluszny or LeVar Arrington or a Sean Lee back there, but it's a solid group with Jason Kabinda manning the middle, and Manny Bowen and Koa Farmer on the other sides, and so they've held their own. Kabinda's been leading that group pretty well, so it's just it's a real collective effort. Brent Pry, the defensive coordinator, has done an incredible job as D coordinator. I remember when Bob Shuf left a couple of years ago for Tennessee, everyone was worried about would there be a drop off in defensive play, and Pry's not only picked up what Shuf done, but I think he's taken it to another level.
Now the Michigan offense is pretty atrocious at this point, and that started with week 1 with Wilton Spate at quarterback throwing 2 pick sixes against Florida, but the defense has been so special. Air Force, after facing Michigan and taking Michigan within a 1-score game late in the game in Ann Arbor, Troy Calhoun, the Air Force coach, said basically Michigan could take its defense and special teams, leave the offense at home. He wasn't quite this blunt, but you know what he meant. He could take the defense and the special teams, and they could score just enough on those two sides of the ball to go to a bowl game by themselves without playing offense at all. That's how bad it's been for Michigan on offense. Some stats from Bill Conley here speak to both the Michigan offense and what you mentioned with Penn State playing great pass defense. Penn State ranks in the top 3 in the nation in pass breakups and interceptions, meaning that they are not just relying on pass incompletions because of decent coverage or a misfire between the quarterback and the wide receiver, but they are dislodging the football and getting in the way of the pass 45% of the time. That's a pretty remarkable stat. Michigan, their last 10 possessions against Indiana, they went 3 and out 7 times, and they punted 9 of the last 10 possessions against an Indiana defense that's pretty good, but not anything close to what they're going to see this week against Penn State. Wilton Spate is nothing special or dynamic, but he had a fine season last year. The Michigan offense was capable. Now with John O'Korn, they've really had 2 awful weeks with him throwing less than 50% completion percentage, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and 58 yards passing in an overtime game against Indiana. So you know that the athletes are there, but they just haven't put it together. And now with a backup quarterback in play, it's really been a mess for Michigan. Donovan Peoples-Jones would be the one guy that you would have to look out for, possibly them wanting to get him involved and just doing anything, jet sweeps, bubble screens, anything to get his hands on the ball to try to spark anything against this Penn State defense. Tim, any parting shots for us? Penn State, Michigan. I know you're going to enjoy this one.
Well, yeah, I guess depends if you enjoy it, but I'll definitely enjoy watching, 2 great defenses go at it, and see how, both offenses try to work around that. Especially curious to see how Penn State's offense works around that Michigan defense, because they're the ones obviously with a lot more potential. But I guess as far as the score prediction, I'm saying 24-13 Lions. I think it's going to come back to, like I said, I think John O'Korn, I know he's probably a little extra motivation. He grew up in a town called Huntington, Pennsylvania, which is outside State College. It's the next county over, actually, from Center County, which are state colleges. But his mom works as a waitress at a State College restaurant downtown, and she served a bunch of the players. So she's well liked. But he might have a little extra motivation. But still, that's this Penn State defense is gonna come out fired up. They're probably still thinking about how they were embarrassed last year in Ann Arbor, giving up 49 points. So, white out under the lights. I think they come up with a couple turnovers in Michigan territory, gives the offense a short field to work with to get in the end zone. I think that's going to be a difference in the end. I think they come up with a few more turnovers than Michigan's defense does. So it's one of those games where turnovers and field position are going to be absolutely key in this game. And I think Penn State will do a better job in those categories, and that'll be the difference in the end.
Yeah, and the Michigan defense could play a great game, but the Penn State offense much more capable than Michigan's offense of breaking the 2 or 3 plays that are going to make a difference in the game. A Barkley 50-yard run, Tompkins or Jawan Johnson 45 or 50-yard completion downfield. The probability of Penn State doing that a handful of times against the Michigan defense, for as good as it is 10 times more than Michigan having the chance and opportunity and executing that against the Penn State defense. And that could turn out to be the difference as well. In terms of motivation, we've really diagnosed the matchups and the nuts and bolts. But in terms of motivation, on one side, you could go with the Penn State 49-10 lashing in Ann Arbor, motivating them, or you could go with the Michigan, we're under-regarded, we're a double-digit underdog, everybody's forgotten about us, and we're going to show up and show that we're still a factor in the Big Ten. Who knows that? I would think both teams should be very motivated with the Big Ten still up in the air. Penn State's already taken a big step in defeating Iowa. Michigan failed its first test in division against Michigan State. They have to win. Penn State would still have an opportunity to make things interesting and do something and win the division, even with a loss. But, of course, they don't want to start now with those, because they've got quite the 3-game gauntlet coming up with Ohio State and Michigan State as well. Tim Aiden helping us break down Michigan's visit to Penn State to take on the Nittany Lions, the number 2 ranked team in all of college football. Tim, we appreciate the time.
Sure thing, Mark. Thanks for having me on.